The one thing I've been wanting to speak to you about or ask you about, and as you know, I tried the last time with your guy that left, is Sanctuary Mandela.
Yes.
Does Sanctuary Mandela fall under heritage hotels?
Yanda, I would probably say to a certain extent, yes. But the way we look at it is it's a celebration of Madiba's life.
Yeah.
And that we're able to tell a story or part of the story of what happened. I mean, that house has got so much history in terms of meetings, important meetings that happened there.
History shaping type of meetings?
And history shaping the future. The fact that even today we're still privileged enough to have his personal chef still working at Sanctuary Mandela.
Yeah. The lady's name is, I forget what her name
Sis
is.
Xoliswa.
Sis Xoliswa, yeah.
And she, I mean, all her stories is about her interaction with Madiba from a food point of view. And she has so many stories, but it also showed another side of Madiba in terms of his preferences when it came to food. I think,
and that's what she got right. There's a certain request that he made, and so, she made it, and then she became the chef. If I recall.
Sometimes, although he wanted it in a certain way, for whatever reason, she couldn't do it in that way, but she did it in her own way, and he enjoyed it.
He got used to it.
So, and I mean, she tells the story of that he never enjoyed fish. Apparently, I don't know if it was he had an allergy towards it. And obviously, wherever he traveled, meals were getting served.
Yeah.
But he overcame that fear. But the stories that she's able to share with just Mandela as a human being, just the guy that had his breakfast in the morning, and he was very pedantic about what type of food he ate. And so even the menu at Sanctuary Mandela now is inspired by her and him. In terms of, so what we try and do is take that he enjoyed and to a certain extent modernize it to what we call fine dining.
Yes, because it's a luxury brand. It's a
exactly.
5-star hotel.
And yeah, I mean, if we go back to kind of how this thing came to be, is that Sanctuary Mandela was, people thought, I mean, we would like, what do we call this? Because you can call it a boutique hotel, and we in terms of the thinking there, it was really around like saying, we want this to feel like home.
Yeah.
And so when you're there, you must feel like you're in Mandela's home, because he was a very welcoming. Wherever everybody that came to visit him in that space felt welcome. And that's ultimately the experience, we want to, and it's the funny story there is that it was first thought out to be a museum.
Yeah.
And we managed to land it with the Nelson Mandela Foundation to turn it into a living museum. And obviously from a hospitality point of view, a living museum, what does that mean? But we said, listen, let's put accommodation. Let's guests experience what, he felt in that space. And that was a 3-bedroom house that originally was planned for 7 rooms.
Yeah.
And because he lived for 9 decades, we decided, no, this needs to be 9
rooms.
9 rooms.
Beautiful.
And so, the budget went up.
Yeah.
But each room tells a different story of his life.
I like that.
As a father, as a leader, as a prisoner. And so conveniently, or obviously thought through by the creatives, was that, the smallest room is the prisoners, because obviously that's how you need to kind of have that feeling. So I think the magic is once you're in a room, you get to understand a part of Madiba's life. Yeah.
But what does the menu say about him? Any one thing that you can think of at the top of your head?
He enjoyed breakfast was very important to Madiba.
Breakfast like a king.
And sometimes he even missed lunch. But breakfast was something that he had this ritual. in terms of his morning, because he used to get up very early.
Yeah.
And obviously getting up early wasn't because, throughout his life, it was because of his time
Discipline.
on Robben Island.
Yeah.
Getting up early, it was that natural, and so breakfast became a very important meal team. And there are certain foods that he enjoyed, but keeping fit and healthy because of being on Robben Island, that was also a big focus of him. I don't think he specifically chose foods. Like in today's world, you don't eat this, don't eat carb.
Yeah.
For him, it was just having
like
a meal.
different diets.
But it was obviously the exercise part of it that came into play. And even we pay tribute to him as you walk into Sanctuary Mandela. When you look up on the first floor, there's this picture of him as a boxer as you're coming in. Looking obviously all frisked out and looking like a real boxer.
But just looking at it, listening to the history, reading about the history of the hotel, you can't help but to be amazed. I wonder though, it's a 5-star hotel. It trades in the market. I guess it competes. It must compete. Who is the target market? Who are you welcoming? Who are you asking to book there? Who are you speaking to? Who is it for? And what's the current breakdown of terms of client profile that comes there? Those kind of things. Who's Sanctuary Mandela for?
Yeah.
Who is it catering for right now?
I mean, we opened the Sanctuary Mandela in September 2021. So very much the COVID times of. But what we've seen is there's a massive American following. Which is, I think, the brand Mandela, is huge.
Of course.
German, the European market. And so we've seen a lot of international guests from those markets coming in now, especially as we go through the recovery. You're finding, there's only 9 rooms, but because some groups are, much more than that, what we've also find is that they might stay at another hotel that can accommodate the entire group, but then they will come and have lunch or dinner at the restaurant. From a local market point of view, what we do see is a lot of kind of your birthday, your special events. That's like birthdays, anniversaries.
Weekend type of business.
Yeah, and then we obviously do the activations on weekends, which is a Jazz Sunday that we do, which is quite successful. And we the nice thing about it is we're bringing in local artists to exhibit their talent. And the other market that's quite interesting is that you find in this corporate market coming in because they're looking for a space that, they can reflect in.
Yeah.
So a lot of the strategy around the corporates is, especially for your executive teams, is to come and have your conference there with the inspiration of, when you plan your next year or there's issues that need to be dealt with.
Yeah.
That you have the inspiration of Madiba as you work through, because you kind of feel that you're in the space.
I can see
because we all know there's a lot of negotiation that happened at that property, in the early years.
And going into the festive season, any idea of what the books look like? Is the hotel going for its peak? Is it the hotel going for its valley? What are you expecting trade-wise?
We're expecting probably a bit of a dip, like anything like we know in Joburg, because Gauteng is, and obviously the international market, falls down from that early December, and then we'll start picking up. But, for those, the locals of Gauteng, we do the Christmas lunches. We're planning something for New Year's. So, that's a space that will just be there for the locals. But the market, we know Joburg just has that lull during this time of the year. And then we start preparing again for the new year. But the international business has picked up in a big way. I think probably the best part of, and you can see it in the feedback, is the staff.
Yeah.
Because they are trained and skilled to live the values of Madiba.
That's right.
So every guest that comes there they are greeted with welcome home. for those repeat guests that come there is welcome home again.
It's beautiful.
To give them that experience.
You talk about the US market coming through. I can imagine why those people want to come and experience it. It has a direct link to Nelson Mandela. What is the common feedback, that you are receiving as far as the experience in that hotel? What are they enjoying the most? What are they appreciating the most?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of things. The food is amazing because it's inspired and there's a story behind it. The wine that gets served, although Mandela wasn't a
wine drinker, big wine drinker, yeah,
he inspired people so there's always this link to Madiba.
Yeah.
And then obviously the staff, get the big compliments. But it's that whole essence of, for a guest, making them feel like they're in his home. They get to feel a some sort of connection.
I'm getting fired up just listening to you talk about it, because I'm now even more eager and in a hurry to go and stay in Mandela's home.
And the other thing is that if you look at certain attractions out there, you got Robben Island and you got Vilakazi Street, etc., that somehow has these touch points of Mandela. At Sanctuary Mandela, you're able to experience different phases of. So you almost entirely get the full experience of his life.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, guests get the opportunity to, which is literally like 5 minutes away, which is the Nelson Mandela Foundation Center of Memory.
Right.
That's where the archives are there. And that's where you get to see kind of the personal side of Mandela in terms of his letters he wrote to his kids when he was in prison, which is very emotional. I can talk about one letter that probably hit me the most, where he wrote it to his daughters while in prison, where he said to them, I'm sorry I cannot celebrate your birthday or your successes at school because I'm fighting for a bigger cause.
Yeah.
And you sit back as a father and you that's what you have to tell your child.
Yeah.
Those are the type of things that guests are able to experience as well.
Yeah. You start thinking about a lot of things. What did that child think? Did it encourage the child? Was the child sort of inspired and with motivation, or was the child confused? I don't even know how many years he had been in prison and before he wrote that letter, or when he wrote that letter. But it's quite interesting. Special place, and I can't wait to go there. Have you been there? Have you? You must have snagged and all the hotelier things. But have you taken the family there?
I took my wife there.
Yeah, and what did she think?
No, she actually went there without me.
Right.
Because she was in Joburg, and she fell in love with the place. I think a highlight was just spending time with Sis Xoliswa.
Yeah.
Because she obviously shares the intimate stories.
Yeah.
But the people is the big thing for me, because when they started, they were raw.
Yeah.
It was in the COVID, so there was a massive skill shortage. But they've been trained up.
That's when you opened.
Exactly. So
it wasn't planned though.
No.
Obviously. Yeah.
And it was great to see the growth in the people.
Yeah.
But it's also more importantly because they're young. Most of them were probably weren't there when Madiba was that the world got to see when he came out of prison. So, for them to kind of embrace, what he stood for is quite amazing. Definitely.
If you think about the generations, the younger generations, Gen Zs, what would you say? Would they appreciate a Sanctuary Mandela type of establishment? Would they enjoy themselves in a Sanctuary Mandela by themselves with?
It's funny you ask that question, because we've seen a lot of young visitors. Sometimes they just come in for lunch.
Really?
Sometimes they come in on a tour, because we got some, guides that bring internationals to the property, just to come and experience, and then they have lunch. That's what we do. And it's interesting because it's funny how much they know about Madiba. And I think with the Gen Zs, they're looking for inspiration. They're looking for
meaningful experience.
I think the other side of this whole thing is that we live in this world of so much turmoil and wars, and and they're just looking for positive inspiration. And if you're able to share that with them,
they appreciate it.
They appreciate it, and they're inspired, and they go spread the message. So we've definitely seen a kind of attraction by that younger market.
I mean, I just think about some of the people that are Gen Zs in my family that are so involved in a lot of things, societal things. So I asked the question, thinking about that at the back of my head, that these people are quite deep, but they've got a perception. They can act in certain ways. Would they appreciate the Sanctuary Mandela? Do you find the frenzy that we find in hotels and restaurants in Rosebank and all these popular, trendy hotels where people walk in and take pictures and Instagrams and so do you find that, in Sanctuary Mandela, or is there a certain level of decorum, for lack of a better word?
And when I say the younger market, I'm actually talking about the international market.
International, yeah.
I find, our local market is not there yet. And I think we just very much, and I think we're going through that transition with our local market of Gen Z starting to think African.
Yeah.
Because obviously the influence of the Western world is massive.
I see.
And I think we're still in that transition where we very much, if you look at our younger, very influenced about or by these international similar Gen Z celebrities, etc. But it's interesting to see these international young people coming in and showing an interest in, and they know Mandela when it's interesting because you talk about the deepness, and they've taken the time to, and maybe it's a fact of because they live in another country and they get taught about it or they hear about it, that they're interested in understanding why this great man is still to this day.
They come here with a purpose. It's
celebrated
purposeful travel
as an icon. And so they want to know more because that's Gen Z. You need to convince them. They want to know why you did that. Why did you?
Very interesting.
You spent 27 years in prison. Why didn't you just give up? That's the questions I think they ask.
Yeah.
They ask very much the flip side of and it causes them to dig more. And once they understand it, they appreciate it.
Tell me, Brett, what was the involvement of the family with this hotel?
Interesting, because the family, the actual property is owned by the Nelson Mandela Foundation.
Okay.
But what we obviously had to do is, Mandla Mandela became the head of the family, with Madiba's passing. So it was important to get his blessing, which we,
you did.
The beauty of these stories is that he was a little kid
I can imagine,
in that house, and can relate stories of his grandfather, him playing around, and then this one was coming into the house to meet him, and he was there. And it was quite special because when he came to the house, bear in mind that he saw the house many, many years ago. It
looked a bit different.
And we've managed to keep certain aspects of the house because of
which
the
you can
heritage,
recognize.
Which he says, but I was sitting right here. So that's magic. And obviously with Sis Xoliswa, that it was nice for him obviously to reconnect with her again.
It's a beautiful story. I can't wait to be there. But just moving out of Joburg now, and quickly just to end off, touch on the other areas where you are responsible, because you are the COO of the Motsamayi group, which also looks after Cape Point and there's the big God's Window project. What would you tell Joburgers and Durbanites why is the reason why they should be coming down to Cape Town down at this festive season, and specifically going to spend time at Cape Point? What would you say? This is why you should come down and spend time at Cape Point. What is special about Cape Point, and what are the exciting things that await people that are not Cape Townians out of town wanting to experience Cape Town?
I mean, I think as South Africans, so whether you're from Gauteng, Northwest, KwaZulu-Natal, Mpumalanga, Limpopo, as South Africans, whether you're in Cape Town, we need to celebrate and visit and travel our own country first. And so we must remember there are only certain things in this country that you can never find in the world. There's only one Cape Point in this world. It's unique. Yeah. There's only one Table Mountain. And these things we have to celebrate. You get the Blyde River Canyon in Mpumalanga. And so for vice versa, as Cape Townians, we need to
go there.
Yeah. And for me, it's so important for my kids to travel this country before they go and travel overseas. And as South Africans, besides the fact economically times are tough at the moment, so we have to travel local. But Cape Point on its own is what I call scenic beauty.
Yeah.
Yes, it's not the point where the two oceans meet.
Yeah.
Cape Agulhas is the southernmost point of Africa. But it is a magical, from a scenic point of view, it is a magical, and the history behind Cape Point. I mean, we speak about the 12 moments that and we launched this campaign many years ago about Cape Point in terms of the touch, the smell. You're right by the ocean, the fynbos, and it's how you kind of take all of those things into the experience. But Cape Point is I mean, it's one of what we call it the part of the Big Six. Along with Table Mountain, Kirstenbosch, Groot Constantia, Robben Island, of the must-sees to do in Cape Point. So, it's like any other place you go to. When you go to Mpumalanga, you must go to Panaroo, you must go to God's Window, you must go to Bozak Paddles, because these are things that only happen. There's only one of these things in our country. So we have to celebrate
so spoiled.
And we are spoiled. We are so fortunate in this country to have all these things. In KwaZulu-Natal, you got the Drakensberg.
Correct. The mountains, the hiking trails.
As South Africans, it's and I don't think we appreciate it as much as the internationals, because when they come here, they go like, you guys live in like the most beautiful country in the world. And for us, living in Cape Town, we take for granted that every morning we look at this mountain.
Yeah.
And we forget
Lion's Head
is like all this beauty around us. Whatever area you're coming from, it doesn't matter where you're coming from. If you're working in the city, you're going to look at that mountain.
Yeah.
And that's I think we just take things for granted. And sometimes inspiration is just looking at nature.
Just to sort of finish off, we talk about God's Window, another area which I'm quite familiar with because I met my wife in White River. So we would drive around and go to these places. I'm sure God's Window is not going to look like how I remember it very soon because of the huge investments that you're putting to it. Just maybe in a nutshell, summarize what you're doing there and what's the point and what it means to the domestic tourist, the international tourist, the tourism economy and landscape, and what it means to the guy who likes to go and experience things, for that part of the area.
Yeah. God's Window is obviously one of the top attractions along the panorama route that everybody. But at this point in time, if you think about Pilgrim's Rest, God's Window, Boar's Lock, Potholes, Bladed River Canyon, Three Rondavels, and then the waterfalls in between.
Yeah.
You can see these things. And so you get it, but there's nothing there.
Yeah.
So you take your picture and you leave. And so when we looked at God's Window, the concept was always there of a skywalk, because it's the perfect place. We don't have a skywalk on this continent. Yeah. There's Grand Canyon, there's China. And so obviously the concept of the skywalk and the tender came out and we obviously bid for it. But we wanted to make the skywalk unique and also better than what the other skywalks were around the world. And it's a celebration of African success in terms of the design, because it's going to be a 20 meter. So if you think about when you take those pictures at God's Window currently, picture yourself walking out 20 meters from the cliff.
Closer,
looking down and that's having amazing. that experience like the other skywalks do around the world. But then bringing in the food and beverage element, bringing in the retail element.
Yeah.
So, currently at God's Window, the retail is dilapidated.
Yeah.
Everybody's selling the same thing.
Yeah.
And there's such talented artisans within that community. So we all know Mpumalanga has the highest unemployment in the country. So for us, it's the impact, obviously, on the people, the jobs, and then obviously the knock-on effect in terms of, providing for their families.
Yeah.
So, for us, this is quite a special project in Mpumalanga. Yes, we have others in Mpumalanga, but the model of a triple P, with government, private, and the local community that gets to benefit. And when I say benefit, it's not just becoming because you a shareholder, but you employing from the local community and you skilling up. And the story, and I'm sure I've told you this before about Kruger Shalati is that we now have 230 staff at Kruger Shalati and Kruger Station. And probably just over 200 is from the local community. The beauty,
Kruger Shalati can't be that big. Just remind me again.
Remember, there's two products. There's the lodge and then there's the station restaurant.
The station restaurant, which one is with the pool?
That's Kruger Shalati.
That's
train on the bridge.
The train on the bridge, yeah.
And then you also have your rooms on land as well.
Yeah.
And then you have the Kruger station. So it's a massive staff complement. But
you're also operating at a certain level of premium. So
correct.
You need,
so it's 5-star. Yeah. That all comes with it. But the beauty of that is that we took staff that had no skills. We had to basically employ on attitude and passion. They knew nothing. Nothing about
5-star.
So expecting, you're serving a guest and you need to tell them about the wine, etc., etc. Some of them, most of them, when they started,
didn't know anything about that.
But 3 years later, fast forward 3 years later today, they will tell you exactly where the wine is from. They'll tell you a story about the wine. They'll tell you exactly how you need to pair it with the food that you're choosing. So that for us is the big reward. And we want to do the same thing at God's Window.
That's amazing.
So that you take somebody that has no knowledge of hospitality, of guiding, all of those facets of an attraction, and then giving them this opportunity